Welcome to the Growth Minded Accountant podcast, where our experts will share best practices on running your firm in the digital age. This podcast is brought to you by CountingWorks Pro. Let's get started.
Hello and welcome to the Growth Minded Accountant podcast, where we explore ways for tax and accounting professionals to grow their practices and better serve their clients. I'm your host, Lee Reams. I'm the founder and CEO of CountingWorks. And today's episode kicks off a new series on generational marketing. So in this series, we're going to start diving into different demographics. We've talked about this in previous podcasts and webinars, but we're going to go in depth in each demographic. We're starting today with baby boomers, who currently hold the majority of the United States wealth. That's obviously probably a good target audience to talk about first. So joining me today is Rebekah Barton, our Chief Visibility Officer here at CountingWorks. Rebekah, if you can say hello real quick.
Hey, everybody. Looking forward to this series. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, and we're talking, Rebekah wrote a bunch of blog articles that are on our CountingWorksPro.com website, and the first one is called Baby Boomers Hold the United States Wealth. Here's why your firm needs them. And we're going to explore how strategic marketing can help your practice reach and retain boomer clients. So we'll also talk about where different generations hang out, both online and offline, and how to tailor your firm's messaging to meet where they are. So again, as I said, this is the first of several episodes looking at generational differences in marketing. It's a big thing, and you'll learn very quickly if you go through all these podcasts with us, what the differences are and how to market properly. So stay tuned for those future discussions. Our next one, we're going to follow Gen X, millennials, and beyond, and we'll kind of go from there. So Rebekah, let's get this conversation started. Let's just do a quick overview of kind of some key statistics around the baby boomers' wealth and in the U.S. and why this demographic is so critical for the tax and accounting profession.
Sure. So baby boomers make up only about 20% of the US population, but they hold 50% of the wealth, which is really, really impressive. And obviously, right off the bat, if you're in tax and accounting, you need these people. They hold a lot of the money in the US. As far as technology statistics, which are really going to come into play today, only about 2/3 of them own a smartphone. So that means about 1/3 of that audience is still using just a traditional feature cell phone with just, the little screen, the flip phone. And they may not even have that. There are those who don't even have a cell phone. About 52% of them own a tablet. Most of those are professionals, people who are using the tablet for business purposes, business people, business owners, that type of thing. However, about 70% of baby boomers do use social media, primarily Facebook. 78% of them are active on Facebook as opposed to all other social media platforms. So that's still a really good place to reach boomers. And also 70% of them are curious about newer technologies like AI, Instagram, TikTok, places like that online. So there's a lot of interest, but not a ton of usage of new technologies. So that's kind of where we're going to jump off today and telling you how to market to this generation.
Yeah, and I'm going to throw in a little snippet there with your 50% of the wealth. As boomers pass their estates along, there's obviously, and I know you've written an article about family marketing and understanding if you can get an entire family and how, now with NIL and kids with gigs and influencers, there's so many people now making significant amount of money from different sources, but they're also going to start inheriting a lot of wealth. So what does that mean? There are obviously tax ramifications with inheriting wealth. There's tax ramifications with managing and growing that wealth. So there's a lot of different ways to go. So I think it's really important for the tax and accounting profession to really listen in and hone in on how can I start this relationship? How can I reinforce that relationship with my boomer clients? And then what are some different ways that I can go about, finding ways to have more of the family members involved? So we keep talking about generational marketing. I would like to kind of define that a little bit, and then how do marketing approaches differ for baby boomers, for example? You listed some of the technology they're using or not using versus younger generations.
So baby boomers tend to be more traditional than younger generations, especially millennials and Gen Z, who are open to just about anything. So boomers like to have a human point of contact still. That's something in all of my research that I really found, whether it's a chat, like a video chat with a person, which became more prevalent during the pandemic. So a lot of them are more comfortable with video chat, but they still like a person. So you need to be offering, as a tax and accounting professional, multiple avenues for baby boomers to get a hold of you, because they are not going to be as comfortable with chatting with like a bot as people who are in, their 20s and 30s are going to be. They want to have a real person giving them answers. So offering kind of the mixture of, hey, you can upload these documents online through our portal if you want to, or you can drop them by my office. So kind of that mix is going to be really important with boomers, and giving them the security of having a human point of contact if they want it, while also offering, hey, we're going to be posting videos on Facebook or on YouTube, which are two of the platforms that boomers are very comfortable with. They like video. Longer form video is something that generation is really going to resonate with.
So you're talking about, you kind of gave some examples of where they hang out, but you kind of said some long form things. So long form, why do you think that is more beneficial going? And I want to step back and say, we're not pigeonholing anybody. I believe in individualism. I'm a libertarian, so I'm like, you have your own rights. You can do whatever, you're your own person. But the realities are there's reasons for these statistics. And as a group, a lot of things we're talking about will apply. But where do you say then that boomers are hanging out as far as ways to communicate with them? So, is this email? Is this, am I on TikTok? Where am I going for them?
Yeah, email is going to be great. Email newsletters, they love that. They like that personal kind of feel. It's going to feel more like you're sending them a letter or sending them something that is personalized to them. So email is a really good way to reach this generation by and large. Like you said, Lee, people are different. There are baby boomers on TikTok, right? But the overarching group is going to like email. They're going to like Facebook. They're very comfortable there, for the most part, with 3/4 of boomers saying they have a Facebook profile. And YouTube tends to be popular among all generations for different reasons, which is kind of interesting. Like my daughters, who are 5 and 8, love YouTube, and my mom, who's in her 60s, loves YouTube. So I think YouTube has a place in a lot of different generations. For people who are in the boomer generation, though, YouTube is a really good place to post videos because they know how to navigate it. It's a very familiar platform where everybody kind of knows what they're doing. It's also a really good place for people to kind of get lost. So in a good way. So if someone is viewing a tax and accounting video and yours plays next, there's a good chance that they're already going to sit there and just keep watching it because it has that streaming quality where it just continues playing videos. So that's a good reason to use YouTube just for any generation, that you have a good chance of people kind of just stumbling upon your content if they're watching similar content. Facebook, also, like we said, a really good place to reach boomers. Doing your own custom posts, using automated posting like what CountingWorks Pro does, anything like that to just keep your page active and keep content going out to these people is a good thing. And also letting them know that they can reach you via phone, via email, whatever options you have, make that clear on your Facebook page that there are other points of contact. So that's really important. And then we already kind of mentioned email newsletters. Personalized emails can be really important for this particular group as well. Let them know, like, hey, we see you're close to retirement. Let's schedule a planning session to talk about this life event that you have coming up. People in this generation are really going to appreciate that personal touch, the fact that you're looking out for them, looking out for their wealth.
So I think you're saying a lot of this is about building trust, credibility, kind of your reputation, and being consistent, speaking to them in a human factor versus, here's my little chatbot, go talk to it, it will answer all your questions. I would say younger generations are more apt to hit a link on Instagram from a brand they've never seen before and buy something to put their credit card in versus an older generation. So when it comes to selling tax, accounting, financial services, what are the ways that you can help position yourself as that trusted advisor? And we're talking about both finding new clients, but also strengthening your relationships with your current boomer clients. They're going to have all sorts of needs as they go through selling businesses, as they retire, as they do estate planning. So there's a lot of different things, insurance products. There's a lot of different ways to go here when we're talking about sophisticated products. But, what are the ways that you would suggest for a CPA firm and a enrolled agent firm, for example, to start building that trust and credibility and amplifying it to their audience?
Really start posting content clusters, start creating videos, whatever your chosen medium is, about these sort of niche services that are going to speak to the boomer generation. So healthcare costs are something that a lot of people in that age group are thinking of. One of the statistics we have says that 70% of boomers will require some form of long form care. And with people living longer, wanting to stay active longer, all of these different things, healthcare is very, very important. So advisory services that kind of look at like tax advantaged healthcare accounts, long-term care insurance, Medicare, Medicaid, providing those services as part of your overarching wealth planning strategies and services can really go a long way in kind of securing the loyalty of these boomer clients, who will then look at you not only as their financial planner, but as someone who's going to help them live the best quality of life they can possibly have for as long as they can have it. And then you also mentioned, Lee, business succession plans, estate planning. Also very important as boomers do transition into retirement and out of business ownership. So positioning yourself as an expert in the area of planning for succession or how they are going to exit the business. Exit planning is huge for this generation because a lot of small business owners who are in the boomer generation don't have a proper succession plan, and they're starting to realize that they need one. So that's another place you can really focus. And as far as like gaining expertise and establishing yourself, sending out newsletters that pertain specifically to this. In our platform, for example, you can do custom newsletters where you could write up brief snippets showcasing your expertise in this area. You can also do content clusters on your blog that showcase your expertise. You can write custom social posts. AI can help you about these different topics. Just kind of establish online that you really do offer value in these areas, and your existing clients will then come to you for those services. They'll tell their friends. Word of mouth is still big in this generation. And then their friends will come to you, and you'll kind of get that network effect that we love to see.
Yeah, what's great, if you do segment your client database, you can segment obviously the content and the type of content, the messages, the life events you're talking about. I would suggest at that point, if you did have, let's say, a boomer focus versus a Gen X focus versus your business owner focused, you might have three different deals as far as newsletters. Is when you go to plan content, use tools like Max AI. So ask Max, hey, I need a content calendar, a newsletter calendar for the next 3 to 4 months for my boomer clients. In this 4 months, I want to focus on X. Perhaps people that are selling homes. And the next one, I want to talk about being active and healthy. The next one, I want to talk about their legacy and leaving it upon. Or you can kind of mix and match this. But what I'm getting at is if you theme it and you have constant content around these subjects, it's going to resonate more with your audience versus like you send everything and 1 or 2 articles speaks to this client versus 1 or 2 articles speak to this client. That's why tools like CountingWorks Pro that allow you to have as many segments as you want and as many newsletters as you want really can help out. So I'm kind of leading in then. So what are some of the common mistakes to avoid or misconceptions about reaching baby boomers?
So I think a lot of people think that they're not online at all and that you need to still be sending paper mailers or brochures or taping flyers to their doors. That's not the case. And particularly in a post-pandemic world, most people are more comfortable with some form of online communication. So focus on where they are online. You do not have to be doing a ton of traditional marketing. You don't have to go out and buy a billboard on the highway to reach these people, which is a very common misconception for the boomer generation. A lot of them are relatively tech savvy, especially those who are still working, who own businesses, who have had to kind of get with the times because COVID really forced people online who weren't online to do meetings, to conduct business, to conduct their financial transactions even. Their banks weren't open. They had to learn online banking, things like that. So don't focus so much on traditional marketing if you have been focusing on traditional marketing for this demographic. Look at where they are online. A lot of them are going to be open to things like webinars online, where you're still giving that personal connection. They still see your face. They can still ask you questions, but you're not having to, secure a facility and sit down with a group of people and hope that people show up at the community center. And convenience is important for boomers, right? They're busy. A lot of them have grandkids now. They're busy with, their families. They have adult children who they're spending time with. They're, they have kids who have moved out, they're empty nesters, they're engaging in travel and their own activities. So they do value convenience, but they also value a personal touch. So things like webinars, things like personalized email campaigns can go a long way toward reaching this generation and building that trust. Because Lee, like you said, this is not a generation that's going to put their credit card in for something they've never heard of. So establishing trust is really, really important, but there are ways to do that online rather than offline.
Got it. We've been talking a little bit, and I want to move into like the needs and services. You talked about health, and we talked a little bit about business succession and selling, tax strategies, retirement. You can even go to Social Security, when to take it, how to take it, what's taxable, what's not. So give me a little idea in your experience when you're working with clients who are focusing on baby boomers. What are the ways that firms can highlight their marketing on these particular services?
Yeah, very retirement heavy a lot of the time when I work with people who are wanting to work with boomers. A lot of them live in areas like Arizona, Florida, where retirees go. So that's really important. I think local centric content in those types of communities can be really important because in Florida, for example, you have a lot of people moving from out of state who are moving to these local areas. So if you can establish yourself as like the retirement expert in X retirement community, that's a really good type of verbiage to use, that you're this local area's retirement expert. That's something we've used multiple times with clients, with CountingWorks clients who are looking to kind of bring in that demographic. And it's also a really good idea if you live in sort of a retirement area to focus on new people to the area who may not have a retirement planner locally yet. Maybe they moved away, they're no longer working with the person they once were. So that's kind of a great idea if you live in an area where people are moving to and you have kind of this influx of retirees. If you don't live in an area like that, there are still things you can do. We already mentioned webinars, but that really is a good way to kind of get your name out there, start inviting people to your webinars, invite your current clients, and encourage them to bring a friend who's in their same age bracket, who needs the same service. Baby boomers are going to be a lot more likely to listen to their friend telling them, hey, you should work with this firm, than they are to a random person on the internet. Testimonials are also still important within this demographic because they do care what other people think about these firms, and social proof can go a long way. People are kind of surprised to hear that. It doesn't necessarily go as far as with younger generations, but posting video testimonials, for example, where baby boomers can see real people who look like them, who have worked with you, talking about what they liked about your services, that's a really good way to start building trust and expertise that we haven't talked about yet. So adding a testimonials page to your website can go a long way too.
Yeah, you started mentioning personalization, and even let's talk about copy and ways to get engagement, and even the type of images you're using. Obviously, we've already talked about the topics you should be writing about. You've talked about a content cluster, which is writing multiple articles about a similar, that could be, let's just say it's a Social Security issue and having a bunch of different articles there. But let's now talk about your actual copy speaking to these individuals, and or the images that you're using. How do you create, in marketing, we say if you don't have a story, you're dead in the water, right? So how can you create a story around these people, make it more aspirational, make it more like end game, like results, dreaming kind of thing? What are your suggestions there?
For sure. So this is somewhere AI can really help you as far as the copy itself goes. If you go into AI and you're working on a blog post about Social Security and you can tell it, hey, I want people to come away from this feeling positive, feeling optimistic, feeling like they have a game plan for the future. They're going to be able to achieve whatever dreams they may have for their golden years. The AI can take that and run with it and start spitting out copy that's going to be more aspirational. You can give it some scenarios, like someone has always wanted to buy that second home in, the lake house that they've always wanted, that type of thing. And then it will weave those kinds of narrative stories into the copy. That is really important. People need to see themselves in the copy. They don't just want a bunch of numbers thrown at them. That's not helping anybody to see how this is going to help them. So the more narrative you can be, the better. And as far as images go, using imagery of active people who are, relaxed, maybe they're in wine country, maybe they're at that second home, people who are stylish and look happy and healthy. That's what everybody wants. Nobody wants to feel old, quote unquote. So don't use images of feeble people with canes and walkers. Use images of people who are, doing active things, riding bikes, going to wineries, going out to dinner, on vacation, the types of things that everybody wants for their retirement years.
So you're not doing the college kids on spring break in Florida running around the beach. I gotcha. And then I'm going to add some things here. So there's a couple different talking points. I think we've been walking around them. We've talked about like focusing on relationship and trust, and just like copy saying, hey, we're here to guide you, not just manage your money, meaning, we're here for you. We're not just trying to sell you something. The idea of let's work together to secure your future, the future of those you love. So then start also talking about that next generation, start tying in the messaging around that. I think there's a lot of ways then to go into specific things that are like ROI things. So maximize your retirement income by minimizing unnecessary tax hits, meaning, you're not allowed to cheat the system, but no one says you have to pay as much taxes, you can minimize it as much as you want, right? So there's a lot of different ways to do that. I also think you need to be very clear and simple language. So don't use a bunch of jargon with this audience. And even kind of break down a lot of the subjects that you're talking about. So I'm going to give you a mistake I see often is, a CPA with 10 different designations, comma this, comma that. They'll then write everything in their copy on their website that is so complex that only their peers who have the same designations can understand. So you need to really break it down in like common sense things, so let's break it down in easy steps. And even when you onboard them, when you work with them on a tax planning strategy, try to deliver the service, the finished product in the same way, because it helps them make more informed decisions with, I'm going to call it clarity. So they don't want any surprises. They don't like hidden fees. They don't like being nickel and dimed. And I think that's a big issue. Also respect their values and legacy. I've said this a little bit, but, do they have any charitable goals? Are there, that might bring them happiness. It might be more about money at this stage than to them. It might be more about their legacy. How are people going to remember me? Have I benefited others that I leave behind? It could be my community, so maybe giving to a church or local sports groups or whatever. So I'm just giving you a couple different ideas to kind of throw in there. When we go into the communication style, is this more, comedic? Am I writing more formally? Am I friendly? Like what, conversational tone? What is the right voice when you're talking to boomers?
Conversational and professional. Like you said, Lee, this generation does not like surprises. They like to everything laid out clearly. So jargon is out. And I also wanted to point out that this generation is very scared of being scammed. They have heard so many times, don't answer emails you don't know the sender. Don't answer the phone. Don't give this information over the phone. Don't give that information over the phone. And a lot of them are kind of gun shy about talking to people or providing personal information. So that's where establishing trust and being really, really clear about your offerings does come into play. So I loved what you said about using very clear language, breaking things down in a way people can understand so they don't feel like they're at risk of being taken advantage of. And that holds especially true for new clients who haven't worked with you before. Your existing clients are going to have that trust factor. But if you're working with new people in particular, really explaining things in terms that they can understand. And that's where storytelling comes in too. Putting them in a mindset where they can see themselves in whatever you're telling them. And they can be like, okay, I've experienced this and this is how you're going to help me. That can be really, really helpful with kind of securing the trust of this generation. So be conversational, but be very professional. You don't want to come off as flippant or like you don't know what you're talking about or like you're not taking their money seriously because they've worked very hard to build their wealth.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest fear is you've spent your whole life to do this. The last thing you want is to be taken advantage of in your elder years, because there's no starting over. if you make a mistake in your 20s or 30s, you can rectify that. If you're in your 60s, it's not as easy, right? So it's really important to understand that psychology when you're communicating with them and put yourself in their shoes, right? There's one thing I want to bring up too about boomers, because they are in various stages, meaning there's peak earning time in boomers right now, right? Not just retirees. We're talking about people getting ready to retire, ready to sell businesses. This is their peak financial decision, maybe their peak income. So how do you adapt both your services and perhaps your messaging to these people through that period? Because you're going to see people at different stages. And again, I don't want to just be all about retirement when I have a boomer here who's killing it, about to sell their company for $50 million. Retirement is maybe the here, but they're enjoying the experience right now. So kind of explain, how do you maintain that long-term relationship through the full cycle?
Right. So you have to vary your messaging. And it's kind of what we were talking about, Lee, with segmenting your audience. If you know you have 2 or 3 very different types of baby boomers that you're wanting to reach, target all of them in different ways, right? Do different articles, do different newsletters, send different personalized emails, host different webinars that talk about various topics that pertain to these different stages of life, because you're going to get that in any generation where people are at different stages. So it's important across the board to kind of tailor your messaging and provide that varied content that people at different life stages are going to resonate with. So I think with this in particular, you can easily segment it by targeting people who are currently at the peak of business ownership, who maybe have another 5, even 10 more years of business ownership ahead of them. And you can tell them how to kind of create that exit plan that's going to benefit them and the next generation, while simultaneously having other content that is targeted at people who have already retired and who are kind of enjoying the fruits of those decades that they worked. So you just have to vary your content. And that's the easiest, most black and white answer, is that you can't post just one thing and you can't target just one demographic when there are multiple demographics within a particular generation.
All right. So we're talking about, we're going to wrap this up here in a second, but it sounds like a lot of, issue or questions about content that I'm creating and why I'm communicating about certain subjects. But the reality is, hey, I'm a busy tax and accounting firm. How do I actually get enough time to figure out these strategies? How do I then develop that content and distribute it? We've kind of gone through which forms it should be in now. But, again, how am I going to do this, Rebekah? I'm like, wait a second, I'm in here grinding away every day. There's only so many hours in the day.
For sure. Delegate and lean on AI. Those are my 2 biggest suggestions. AI can literally save you hours. I know Lee and I both use AI to pump out more content than we would be able to do on our own, right? So we're not asking you to do anything that we're not doing ourselves. I always like to tell our clients that, this is something I am doing in my daily workflow that has saved me a ton of time, and it can save you a ton of time too. Use the AI, teach it, let it get to know you, let it get to know the type of audience that you're trying to reach. The more you use it, the better the content will be that it spits out. I've been doing a lot of AI trainings and teaching people how to write prompts, how to get the types of outputs that they want faster. And I think you can't overstate the importance of using AI as an assistant, because it's going to actually allow you to create content in an hour that can get you through an entire month, in theory, particularly when it comes to writing social media posts, that type of thing. You can also delegate. If you have a staff in your office, delegate to someone to spend an hour or 2 a month going into the AI system if you don't want to do it yourself, and have them then create a posting calendar. They can schedule on Facebook, they can use Buffer, they can use Sprout. There's all sorts of free tools out there that allow you to pre-schedule this content. And that's a really easy way to start sort of just saying, we're going to dedicate 1 hour a month to scheduling as much content as we can. And whatever gets scheduled during that hour, that's what you post for the month. And the more you do it, the faster you're going to get and the more content you're going to be able to put out. So I think just working it into your workflow is the biggest hurdle. But once you can set aside even just that hour, you'll see that it will make a big dent in your marketing efforts.
Yeah, and what it all comes down to is you're making yourself more referable. And when I say that is the old day referral, someone asked their relative or a colleague, who do you use? It was kind of like in your own little vacuum, right? There wasn't a bunch of other noise. Now I'm going to Google that person that referred. I might ask multiple people. I might ask on social media, who do people work with? And what you're going to see is if you've properly done what we've talked about, you've created content around the boomer issues, their life events, their pain points, their aspirations. When people Google that brand that you just were referred, they're going to see these articles. Perhaps you got picked up by, the LA Times or another trade. That's social proof. Perhaps your reviews that other boomer clients have left about you using similar language. They'll find that in the reviews, in the testimonials. These are things that are going to make that close where you're going to convert. The other side of this is for those that are searching online, take 7 to 10 touch points before someone decides to work with a brand. If you're receiving your email newsletter, maybe a friend added you and you're now on your prospect list. It's repetition. I'm building credibility. You're showing that you know what you talk about. You're showing your empathy. You're showing your expertise. It builds over time. And then as more important, we've done this in other webinars, is just the SEO benefits of this. So the more content you've created around this, the better your rankings, and it grows over time. So an article may have, a small amount of traffic in the first 3 months, but if it gets picked up, for example, I have 2 courses and 2 articles that I've written over a year ago that all of a sudden now I get 2 to 3, 4 signups a day for these webinars that I did when I first launched them. It was like, whoa, we're not doing that great. Now all of a sudden it's snowballing. And I did one on a family office for tax and accounting professionals, for example. I did one on reverse mortgages, for example. And then we did a one-on-one AI one that is, I have a course that I did when we first started this, it's over a year ago. And quite honestly, there's a lot of stuff's outdated on it, but it is killing it right now. People are signing up and it's like, well, let's refresh the content. What I'm getting at is this organic stuff is going to just deliver over and over again. And as people Google you and they're looking without a referral, they're going to see this great profile. That's why making these easy conversions happen. It's because you've built trust through all this inbound marketing. And when they're ready to make that decision, you're the person that calls. So I think we've wrapped this up fairly well. Is there anything else looking ahead, kind of final thoughts you have before we start talking about the next generational topics?
I think we've hit on most of it. Think of your content kind of like investing, right? The more you put into it, the more it's going to grow over time. So even if it feels overwhelming now, it really is going to be worth it. Like Lee said, sometimes a year down the road, you're going to see something really skyrocket and snowball. So I want to leave everybody with some encouragement to just dive in and don't be afraid to start posting because it is going to pay off for you.
Do you have any just action items? I have a couple. I would say, just as a tip, reinforce understanding and empathy with this audience. Basically you're saying, hey, let's talk about what keeps you up at night. We're here to help you feel confident about your money decisions, no matter what stage in life. And what I'm saying is, if you're in a later stage, you're more conservative, right? You're not going to you're not going to be loading up on crypto right now with your nest egg. That's kind of, so you're even going to say, hey, we understand your generation's unique challenges, and we're here to design solutions just for you. I wouldn't call them that generation. I would just see talking to them, specifically. But those would be kind of mine. Do you have anything other to add there, Rebekah? Or are we pretty good?
That's really good. I think we're good. Just target their pain points, like you said, and don't be afraid to just dive in and start reaching out to these people.
All right. So that's going to wrap up this podcast on targeting boomers and their needs and why it's so important. Obviously, we're going to go to Gen X next. And I think one of the things we should probably start trying to figure out for you guys is how to tie in, again, this connection. I know Rebekah has written about this whole family thing. As people sell businesses, are there opportunities are there other shareholders when that sell process occurs? Can those be clients? Who acquired it? If it was a family member, can they be clients? When money starts passing around in estate planning, can their children and heirs be clients? So there's a lot of different ways, and we're going to go after Gen X next. Probably the most important demographic of them all. Thank God for Gen X. I think you're helping save the world right now. So we'll do that next. I'm going to try to do these in a series. We might skip some stuff. We have a couple interesting things we're doing on AI that we might want to go over with you. We're also seeing a lot of security concerns for the tax and accounting space. You guys are being targeted more than ever with denial of service things. The importance of two-factor authentication, not using old technology. So there's a couple different ways to go, but we will do a series on this generational marketing. So hopefully you will continue to listen and share and leave your comments. We appreciate you listening to the Growth Minded Accountant. Again, if you have any questions about anything we talked about today, we do have a service at countingworkspro.com. And more importantly, we have a marketing concierge platform that is better than anything out there in this vertical. We'd love to talk to you and help you out here. So again, we hope you're having a good start to the tax season, and we'll continue to share ideas as we go. Thank you.